Good morning, ghosties and ghoulies. Welcome back to the channel. Good to have you back. I know it's a little bit late, but I am going to be doing a pick-a-pile reading for you for the month of February. It's actually a little bit more than the month of February though. This one's a little bit special. This one is going to be more geared towards love, and love for more than the month of February, love for the upcoming year. So it's a little bit more special reading. So I do have a red candle because of course it is the color of love, and that's what this one's all about. If you've never done one of these readings before, essentially what you do, you have 3 piles to pick from. Each pile, and I usually have a candle, but this time I have these cute little heart charms, and they are all different colors. I have a purple, a green, and a red, and I'm going to put the camera down and let you take a minute and just whichever one appeals to you most, then that pile will be your reading. And of course there'll be timestamps in the description box so that you can go right to your reading and you don't have to listen to the rest of them. So let's get right to it. Okay, so if you have picked the purple heart, this will be your reading. Okay, so first of all, we have the Queen of Swords, which means that you are, by nature, a lot of you are very independent thinkers, very independent people, and very willing to and able to take care of yourself. You don't need anyone, which is fine. And that's okay. You're a very, very independent person. You can still be in relationships and be an independent person. You have the Emperor card. Now the Emperor is about having someone as your touchstone, your person who keeps you grounded, the person you go to for advice, the person who is your strength. It's very much what we look for in a partner, and it's very much what I feel for some of you. This is coming into your life, and for some of you it's already there. There is a feeling of relationships having ended. For at least one person out there, there is a feeling that a relationship did come to an end. It's okay. It was a necessary end. Death is not an ending. It is an end of a chapter. So a chapter in your life may be gone. A chapter in your life may be ending, and the book might be closing on it. But that means that you're creating room for new things to happen. There is a feeling that for some of you, past relationships haven't been the best. There's a feeling of having, kind of looking at, for some of you, looking at relationships and being dissatisfied with what they were. And it makes it very, very hard to see what's being offered to you because you always think in terms of your prior relationships. And it's something that can be very dangerous because if you are always focusing on the negative of what happened to you in prior relationships, you will not trust what's being offered to you. So that makes this reading a little bit harder, and finding connection and finding a love story a little bit harder because that trust is not there, and your focus tends to be towards the negative instead of the positives. And you tend to not trust. There's a feeling that some of you are going to be receiving gifts and receiving actually monetary gifts, not money, but things that are expensive, things that feel expensive. So there are gifts coming to you, but you don't like them necessarily. And it's not because they're not nice, it's because you don't trust the meaning behind them or the intention behind them. Because of prior relationships, there is a feeling of not trusting that the intention behind this is pure. That can be kind of a hard place to be because if your past has been where things were given in a way that was grudging or given in a way that had negative intentions meant by it, or somehow meant to make you feel like you owed someone something, that's very hard to actually have trust that gifts are just gifts, expressions of love are just expressions of love, and not always feel like, oh, well, he bought me dinner, so. And that's bad. I mean, it's a common example of a trope, and it's a trope for a reason because that did happen and it has happened. And I'm sure it happens to men too. I'm sure it happens across the board that it's not always easy to trust gifts that you're given. Yes, because you always have this suspicion. Now, the moon is about not knowing. The moon is about hidden knowledge. It's about getting to the heart of a matter and having a kind of a deeper understanding of what's happening, and a deeper spiritual understanding of what's happening. But you have a lot of there's a lot of your past history for someone that's out there is telling you not to trust what's being given to you and not to trust what's being shown to you. So this can be a good thing because sometimes you shouldn't, but it can also be negative if it's only happening because you are focused on your past baggage and not looking at the situation that exists now. There is a feeling of, it's definitely feeling like you're working hard, and there's a feeling of wanting to accumulate wealth and wanting to accumulate resources and having a nest egg and that kind of thing. I have a feeling that there is an older, not older, but an older relationship. There's somebody out there with an older relationship that might be going through something where there's a spender and there is a saver. And this makes it kind of hard to communicate with each other. So you might find that you're having some conflicts around that, and having some conflicts around he might buy a wonderful Valentine's gift and you're like, no, you shouldn't have done that. And there's a feeling of conflict around that kind of thing. There definitely is a feeling of an older relationship here because the Emperor and the Empress come up. Now, these are very much cards that are made of the same metal, so to speak. You may have the same values, the same sense of humor, the same ways of looking at the world, but you're also quite opposite. And it's good that this happens in relationships. It's the differences sometimes in relationships that make them interesting, and they also serve to teach us things. In this case, the Empress is all about nurturing. It's about giving. It's about harvest. It's about fertility. It's about being a very nurturing, caring person. And sometimes, because it's in its reverse format, you can take that too far. You can take it to the detriment of your own health and your own wealth and your own relationships. So the Emperor might actually be having a little bit of conflict here because you might be balancing against one of you might be balancing against that and saying, no, you need to spend more time in the relationship. You need to save money. You need to be more practical, and you can't always be giving gifts, and you can't always be there for everybody. So that's what the Emperor is teaching the Empress in this dichotomy, but in this dynamic, but the Emperor is also learning too, because he's learning. Yes, you should express yourself. You should express love. You should be caring. You should be nurturing. So they are actually, as much as they might butt heads, they are also teaching each other. So the Emperor may be the one saying, "Oh no, don't spend the money. You don't go so overboard with it." Because you're doing too much. And the Empress is saying, yes, but this is an expression of love, and this, you should trust this as just that. So it's quite an interesting dynamic for a lot of relationships that are out there. And, as long as you recognize that your differences are what makes your relationship interesting, and as long as you have those core values and core things in common, then you can relax into those differences and you can work those things out. So I'm going to read your Tikiashi. Breathe. Breathe deeply. Your breath draws life-giving oxygen into your body. When faced with difficulties, remember to breathe. Nothing is ever solved when you hold your breath. There may be something that you are opposed to. Don't fight it. Allow the flow. So like I said, as long as you are able to express your differences, you can allow this person to be who they are, and you can be who you are, but when you come together, you find that nice equal balance, and it's quite, as long as you allow the person you're with to be who they are and don't try and change them. Now may be the time to breathe some new life into what you might have pushed aside. And again, this comes back to older relationships. There is a feeling of relationships that are quite established. You have all the core values, you have a sense of life experience together. But sometimes when that happens, you can start to feel like this person is an appendage, or that they're not their own separate person. Which I feel is very important in this reading, and it definitely feels like that is part of what's happening for somebody out there. The feeling of not having your own identity anymore, and the feeling of being taken for granted, sort of, because you're looked at as part of another person. So that's very much a caveat for that, you know, that you need to, because when that starts to happen, that's when the relationship starts to, it stops being exciting and it stops being interesting, because you're not feeling like you're being looked at like a separate entity, and you're not being seen as a separate entity. So this is very, very, very important for some of the people that are in this pile. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is a little something different. This is a Trash and Trinkets dip dive. It's a bunch of just trinkets and whatever I'm going to be adding to this over the next weeks, and I'll be adding this occasionally into readings. And they are all symbolic, so what I'm going to do is reach in here and pull out something to symbolize and summarize. Oh, okay. So what I have here is the unpainted version of the actual charm that we used as a focus. And this is very much a message, because it's a message to look for more than what you automatically see at any given time, and to keep your heart open, because if you notice, there's a lot of space in this heart. But if you hadn't noticed, if you hadn't got up close and personal with it, you may not even notice, if you've done that it actually spells the word out, love, inside the heart. So it is a message to look deeper and to look more closely, because there might be things that you're missing and love that you're missing if you are just taking a glance at it and looking away. So that is definitely a message for you guys too. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you have all the love that you desire. Okay, so if you have picked the greenish blue heart, this one's for you. Okay. There's a feeling of enjoyment around you, and childlike enjoyment. Some of you might be thinking about starting to go on vacations and starting to plan vacations and starting to plan some travel. There is a feeling of warmth around you, and enjoyment and happiness, great happiness around you. And all of it's brought by coupleship. This is about partnership, this is about marriage, this is about becoming intimate with a person. It is about true and divine partnership. So I love to see these two things together. This bodes very, very, very well for the future of anyone who picked this pile. And it feels like this has been a long time coming for some of you. There is a feeling of having been stopped in your progress or stalled in your progress, probably not meeting the right people, being away from love and away from the feeling of home for a long time. This may also play into the fact that some of you might be stalled in this process somehow. Yeah. There is a definite feeling of being stalled in this process. I do feel like this is there for you, but there's a feeling of delay, and there's a feeling of some things that have to change, and some modes and ways of living that have to change. There's some pain that you're going through, physically and emotionally. Some of you physically, some of you emotionally, but this is something that has to be gotten through first. This is a feeling of having to wait and having to get through the bad things first. So once you do, all of this stuff still exists, but the feeling is that you need to move through some stricture and some grieving and some pain first. There is a feeling of resurrection. So this is bringing things back to life. There's a feeling of spring. There's a feeling of almost like you're starting to rebirth yourself in some ways. A feeling of coming back from the dead almost. Some of you have been blocked and pulled away emotionally for a long time, going through things. And that's okay, because now you're starting to resurrect, you're starting to see the end of things, and you're starting to see where you can have this in your life. For some, I'm feeling like this wasn't even a possibility for some reason. Like there was a feeling like this kind of thing could never happen to you, but now there's a feeling that it is possible, and that you can find that path out of all of this other pain and stricture and restriction. You've had some pretty heavy burdens you've been carrying, and some of them aren't yours, and you have to be careful that when you're going through this is only for some of you. If you're going for this, that you don't start to take on things that aren't yours. That's very, very important, because you don't want to go back into this heaviness and this feeling of being trapped in situations, and also a feeling of having pain in situations. You want to use your best judgment, and you want to do that by not shouldering burdens that aren't yours. This is great, a vast feeling of, there's a couple of things going on in this reading as usual. One, it's for these people that are looking for this, and your warning is to not shoulder burdens. It's also not to fall into depression, and not to fall into, not to let yourself get worn down, and not to. And I think sometimes we focus too much on this, and like it's an end result, and that it just stays that way forever. It doesn't. Relationships grow, relationships change. So that's, it's not the fairy tale ending. No one gets the glass slipper. That doesn't happen. And even if they did, at some point down the road, it would probably break, and that would be a whole different story now, wouldn't it? So I think that there's a groundingness to it, and in this reading, for some of you to stay grounded. Don't take on burdens that aren't yours, and do not allow yourself to pull away so far that you lend into depression and that kind of thing. You can have a very fulfilling and wonderful life without having this kind of romantic idea, and that's what it is. And this is a very fairy tale kind of ending and feeling. And we will have that for parts of our life, but that is only a part of what a relationship is. It's only a part of what a love is. It is certainly not the be-all and end-all, and it is certainly not the most important part. So yes, this is good. This is very, very good. I do see that you are having, there's people out there that are starting to dream for themselves again, starting to have those kinds of feelings like they could have these wonderful relationships, and that this does exist in the world, and it certainly does. It doesn't, but don't set yourself up. For some of you out there, you set yourself up because you want this fairy tale, and the fairy tale doesn't last. Or the fairy tale, it becomes too real, or it becomes too hard, and that can certainly happen. And I have a feeling that for some of you, the past, that has happened, and you've experienced a lot of grief from it. But I do feel like for the people who chose this reading, there is a sense of partnership, there is a sense of enjoyment, and a great sense of being able to dream again, and being able to have kind of flights of fancy and that romantic idea. And that is all here in your cards, but it's also a warning in your cards to keep yourself grounded. Realize that that's not the be-all end-all, and to not take on too much for another person. Gonna read your Tikiashi. Humor. See the funny side of life. Laugh at yourself. Laughter is love. Learn your life's lessons with laughter, and you'll travel your path with a light and happy heart. I could not have put that better myself. Release melancholiness. Release melancholy, heaviness, and austere practicality in favor of good, clean fun and laughter. Enjoy a good time with friends. Let your spirits soar. So I would say that this card has completely nailed what's going on in this reading. This is the card you're going for, and this is what you're trying to avoid. And you can do all that through laughter, through having more childlike feeling in your life, keeping things light. And maybe that is part of the message here, is to, as much as this is a wonderful romantic idea, and you may be experiencing all this crazy, wonderful romance, don't take it so seriously either. Don't take it so seriously so that if something happens, that you're going to fall into depression or fall into a negative way of being in the world, because that you don't need that. And love should be light, and you should laugh a lot, and I do think that is actually a really wonderful card for this particular reading. I'm doing something a little bit different if you didn't see the last layout. This is a little box or a little jar full of trinkets and trash, and they are all symbolic. And what I'm going to do is pull out something blindly, and we're gonna read it for you. Oh, okay. This is a tiny little pair of binoculars. There are a couple of things that this can mean, and one, it can mean that you are looking too closely at something. So for some of you, you might find that you go into this relationship and everything's feeling really, really great, and this might be something that you've experienced or are experiencing or will experience. Everything's really great until you start to look too closely, and you start to nitpick, and you start to find faults that exist in all of us and in every relationship, and you focus solely on those to the detriment of the relationship. It can also have the exact opposite meaning, which is to take a closer look at people and situations around you that you may have overlooked or that you may have misjudged. It's a hard balance between the two, looking too closely and not looking hard enough. So that is definitely something to be aware of, and I do see really, really positive cards and really, really positive partnerships in this particular reading. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you enjoyed your reading. Okay, so this one is for the people who chose the red heart. So my very passionate reds. Let's see what we have in store for you. Intuition. You have good intuition around love, but you don't always listen to your intuition, and that's something that you need to... overall, there's a feeling of intuition being playing an important part in your life as far as your growing into relationships. You don't listen to your intuition, and you know it because you there's a feeling that for some of these people some of my red heart people who are so passionate, you go into things full tilt. You don't listen to your own intuition, and inevitably you experience destruction in your life related to relationships. This feels very past aspect. Feels like something that some dichotomy, some kind of story you've been playing over and over again. The feeling of, I should have listened to myself, I knew this was the wrong person, I knew this was the wrong situation, and then experiencing the destruction when it inevitably falls apart. Queen of Cups. Now, the Queen of Cups is a significator card. You don't have to be female to be significated by the Queen of Cups. What you have to be is emotional. The Queen of Cups is someone who is very emotional and very spiritual and very, very connected to emotion. She is in her negative aspect in this, which means that when this starts to happen, you find that you are off balance and you do not control your emotions well, and you have a hard time knowing what you feel at any given time. And when you do feel things, you feel them so powerfully that sometimes you can't handle them. So there's a feeling of this kind of thing playing out for some of my people who have picked the red passionate heart. And the passionate heart, I'm not surprised that people like this would be drawn to the red heart, which is very indicative of very fiery passion, fiery in love, fiery in hate. There is a tendency to go to very much extremes for people who would have picked this red significator. The nice thing about it is you're growing. You do have, this is really interesting. It feels like for some of you, there is a partnership now or coming, and it is with someone who's the King of Cups. Now, the King of Cups is exactly the same thing. You do not have to be male to be a King of Cups. You just have to have a more masculine energy and be more sun-driven than moon-driven. The King of Cups is somebody who is very balanced emotionally, and that's not because he's a guy, it's because he's in his upright position, which means he handles emotion well, he shows emotion well, he's very able to love and be open and be expressive, but also able to control his emotions to a large extent. This is feeling like a coupleship is happening here, and this is good. The cups means that you're emotionally on the same level, but one of you might be having a harder time controlling and handling emotion than the other, and not really know how to, and a lot of that may be because of things that have happened in the past. A lot of that may be because of destructive things that have happened for some of my red heart people. when they haven't listened to their intuition and bad things have occurred. So there is a feeling of partnership around you. There's just a feeling of hanging on to some past baggage and not listening to your emotional intelligence. And this is interesting because for some of you, the partnership that you're going to be in is going to be about teaching you that balance between being expressive and passionate and also being able to be controlled in what you do, and to not give everything away, and to not be so dramatic about how things end, and to listen more intuitively to yourself. Now, the interesting thing, earlier I had a reading where I had sort of the same kind of pairing with a king and queen, but it was emperor and empress. What that means is that this partnership is very much the same. You're made of the same metal, which is something I said in an earlier reading. It's like you're different sides of the coin, but you're the same metal. So your values will be the same. Your senses of humor, the things that you like in life, and the way that you look at life might be the same. But the expression is different because they're in opposition of each other. You have the Queen of Cups reversed, which is overly passionate, overly emotional, and the King of Cups, which is more reserved but equally emotional. So you do have this wonderful dichotomy. You are teaching each other things in relationship. The King of Cups will be learning to be more open, be more demonstrative, be more, even though, because they do feel things quite deeply, but they may not express as much as in its reverse position. So you are teaching each other balance, which is very, very important. Wonderful. Yeah. You are going to be out in the world more. There's a feeling, and that I do feel like that's happening anyway, and that will be happening over the next couple of years because of the pandemic. I do get a sense of needing to be careful around other people, and needing to be careful around your spending and your educating. There's a feeling of movement in a relationship that's out there, and there's a feeling of there's an unsettledness about going into the world. There's definitely an educational component to it. The world is about a lot of it about education, but there is also a sense of insecurity around it because there's a feeling of not being 100% sure you're going to be able to handle it. This somehow relates back to your relationship. So the relationship is in play here because it's affected by it, and not to its negative, but there is a feeling of having to jump some hurdles here, and one of them is definitely a feeling of a lack of money. So there might be an imbalance happening financially, and a change happening financially, but there's also a change with how you're being educated in the mental process of what you're doing. So I don't know who that is for. That seems very specific, but there definitely feels like there is a change and an insecurity about whether you're ready for it, in both of those ways, whether you're ready financially and whether you're ready intellectually to take on this new challenge and to change your world. And that definitely is what it feels like. You do have some good partnership cards and you have some good balance cards. So those are definitely wonderful things to look into. Your word is evidence. No jumping to conclusions here. See what it is as is. Allow every new situation to be unblemished by you. Your experiences of the past may color how you see what is going on now. Let today's evidence speak to you in the clear light of a new awareness. There are always indications to guide you forward to the easiest path. See the evidence and clues that surround you. So that's interesting because what I said before is in the past, intuition is sort of evidence-based. It's about taking things around you that you kind of have a feeling about and ignoring them. So if you see the evidence, listen to it. And you will avoid these situations where you're in a destructive element. In the same respect, Don't jump to the conclusion that things are going to be destructive. Don't jump to the conclusion that you're not going to be able to handle things emotionally, or I mean mentally, and you're not going to be able to handle things financially. You can't jump to that conclusion. You're not there yet. So take it one day at a time. Listen to your intuition a lot better, and look at the evidence around you. So happy Valentine's Day. I hope that that helps you a little bit. I am going to do something a little bit new here, so hang on for a second. This is a trash and trinket little vessel. And so there's like a bunch of little trinkets and whatnots in here, and they are all very highly symbolic. So what I'm going to do is reach down, pull something out for you, and give you the meaning behind it. Oh, okay, so you got binoculars. And the last group of people actually got binoculars too. What I'm feeling like this is, though, it can go one of two ways, but I feel like for this group of people, you have a tendency to focus on the tiny, tiny, tiny little minutiae of things and avoid the big picture. And that can be very wearing and very trying, and you don't get to see the broad strokes when you do that. You only see the tiny, tiny little things that aren't working, or the tiny, tiny little problems that seem like they're overwhelming. And that leads to a lot of imbalance emotionally when you do things like that. So you have to, that's why using the evidence, you don't look at the evidence with binoculars. You look at the whole picture and then focus in. So that is that's the message that I'm getting from this, is yes, you have to look at what's there and you have to deal with what's there, but you cannot get so close to it that you can't see what's surrounding it, because that is very equally as important. So that is my message to you, and happy Valentine's Day, and I hope you enjoyed your reading. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it was helpful to you. If you are in a relationship, I hope you have a fantastic Valentine's Day together and have all the passion and love that you deserve. And if you aren't in a relationship, I hope that you stay open to one. I hope that you find love for yourself and celebrate yourself this Valentine's Day, because it's there for you too. It absolutely is. If you enjoyed what I did here, please like and subscribe, leave a comment. It does help me out. And if you enjoyed the new little process of the trash and trinkets trove, let me know, because I'll keep doing it and I'll keep adding to this little cup of trinkets. I find it a little fascinating, actually. I'm enjoying it. So that's it for this time, and until next time, you stay safe, stay loved, be loved, and don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night, because they're there in the light too.